My name is Rusty Gaillard with Silicon Valley Dream Builders, and I'm really happy to be here with Beth and Peter Bostwick from You Can Choose. And we are here today to talk about leadership. And Beth and Peter and I met earlier this year, and we immediately hit it off because all of us are focused on helping people to move forward in their lives, to accomplish what it is that they want to accomplish, based on this fundamental belief that you can have it. You can choose the life that you want. You can have the kind of results that you want in your life. So we had that connection right away. And we were talking about leadership and how important leadership is in life. And when we talk about leadership, we're not talking about those people who are in official positions of leadership in their company and their work. We're talking about leadership in the way that it applies in all aspects of your life. So this is not only at work, whether you have a position where you're managing other people or not, you're still a leader. You're a leader at work, you're a leader in your family, you're a leader in your personal life, and most importantly, you're a leader for yourself and for the kind of life that you live. So we're going to talk over the next 4 weeks about leadership, and not the kind of leadership, as I said, that you study in a business school program, but we're going to talk about leadership as it applies to you in all of these aspects of life, and how do you live your best life using these tools and these principles. And that's why it matters to you, because you are a leader, and these are things that you can take and apply in your life directly. Today, we're going to talk about self-leadership. A week from today, next Monday, we're going to talk about courage and how important courage is in leadership. The week after that, week number 3, we're going to be talking about grit and failing fast, and how grit is about persistence, and how do you balance that with this idea of failing fast? How do those things work together? And then in our 4th and last week, we're going to talk about the value of your network and how important your network is. So come back. We've got multiple sessions that we're going to be holding over the next month. You're invited to all of them. And this is intended to be interactive. So if you have questions, if you have thoughts, chat them in, let us know. We'd love to answer that and engage with you guys. We're striving here to make this a fun and interactive kind of session. So, to that end, if you do have comments, put them in the chat. If you have questions you want to ask, chat them in. That's going to be the best way to get those to us. So you just type your question anytime in the chat, or your thoughts, your reactions to what we're saying, any of those things. We'd love to hear that. So just put it in the chat box. So I thought I would start with just a question to you guys, Peter and Beth, about self-leadership. And specifically, I know you guys, we both have experience in the business world. We all have experience in the business world. You were running a startup for over 10 years. I worked at Apple for over 10 years. We were like different ends of the spectrum, right? Like small company, giant company. And in all aspects of life, whether it's work or other aspects of life, there's times when things are going really well and we feel great. And there's times when things are challenging. And I think self-leadership is relevant in both of those areas. So I'd love to hear, just as a starting point, I'd love to hear a little bit of your experience with self-leadership and your thoughts about what it looks like and why it's important in those different phases of life or of business.
Yeah. You want to start, Peter? Or do you
No, please go ahead.
Okay, so for me, one of the things, and I would say this applies to both good times and not so good times. It really goes back to what do you want and what do you want to put into it. So a level of intensity. And I think that when times are good, it's pretty easy to motivate yourself and move forward and I'm talking about, again, your comment about self-leadership versus a position leadership, because you have to motivate yourself. Nobody else can really motivate you. And I think that if you just develop a thought pattern around what it is you want and the why you want it, and to help motivate yourself so that you have a reason for doing whatever it is you're doing. I think when times are tough, it's a little more difficult sometimes. When times are great, it's a little easier. But I think it all starts at the very basic level of what it is that you're really looking for.
Yeah, without a doubt, having gone through good times and bad times, both in the startup world, and then before we did the startup thing, we were in corporate world for dozens of years as well. So we know all aspects of what it feels like to be in that position, like I said, for good and for bad. And self-leadership is we used to call it, back when we graduated from business school 100 years ago, they called it brand management, right? Your own personal brand.
Yeah.
So who are you as an individual? And how do you want to sell yourself? Maybe they still talk about that now. But the whole idea is that you are your leader, like you said so eloquently to start this thing off. And if you don't know where you want to go, well,
How you gonna know?
how are you going to get there, right? So some of us have had bosses in the past where it's like, oh man, this place is crazy. They don't even know what they're going to do. They don't know where they're headed. They don't know what their priorities are. I got 15 different things. But how often do we ask ourselves, how clear are we in what we want to accomplish? How focused are we? Where have we set our priorities, and looking at it that way? So I think it's a great opportunity for us to look at ourselves as our boss, and what do we want to accomplish, and what do we expect from our boss?
Yeah, I love what you guys are saying, and there's a couple of pieces that really resonated with me. One of those was about like knowing where you're going. That's so important, right? And having that clear direction. But Beth, you also talked about why. Like, why is that important to you? And I love that, because the why, I know for me, when things start to feel challenging, the why is important, right? It's like, I know where I'm going, but man, I'm tired today, or or I'm not making the progress I want to be making. So really connecting on like, why does that matter to me? That's so important.
Well, and I think the other thing that's important about that is that sometimes the why changes.
Right.
So if you're not asking yourself that question, and I would say, on a reasonably regular basis, like check in. So am I doing this for all the reasons that I originally wanted? And if it shifted, then maybe your direction needs to shift. So I think that's a really important feedback loop that we learned along the way, that if you aren't asking those questions regularly enough to notice when you're not going the right direction, or you're realizing that it doesn't seem right at some point, well, gosh, that's I think a potential why in the road where you need to say, oh, maybe I need to shift gears a little bit here. So,
and even if the why doesn't change, the what you're working on might change. So you might be saying, yes, this is where I'm going, this is why I want to get there, but maybe based on some inspired action or whatever I've got that I want to be going, the what that I do is going to be different.
Right. So how would you answer the question?
Well, I just want to comment on something, and then I'll come to that. But one of the things you're pointing to is one of the important elements of self-leadership is this idea of reflection, right? Because you're talking about, at some point, you have to take a step back and you have to look at, where am I going and why? And reevaluate that, right? It's not a one-time decision. It's something that you look at on some frequent basis. And that's when we think about leadership, we think about setting direction. Like, what is everybody doing? What's our goal? What are we trying to accomplish? And if we're not doing that for ourselves, like you point out, you end up on this path that you don't even know that you're on.
Right, exactly.
And that's why, like, that's for me why this is so important, is because I've been on that path. I've been on that path where I'm like, I don't really like where I am, but I don't quite know where to go. And I'm not quite sure even how I got here. I mean, I know the steps, but like, how did that happen? If we're not paying attention, we just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And then we end up in this place that's like, why am I here? I'm not really.
Well, how did I get here? That's the scary one. It's like, how did I get here? It's like, what? It's like you've been asleep at the wheel almost. So.
Right. Yeah, and that's why for me, I love this idea of self-leadership and what you're talking about, this question of reflection. So many of us spend time planning vacations, we spend time planning long weekends, like, oh, it's Labor Day, what are we gonna do with the extra day, right? We spend time thinking about those things, but we don't spend time thinking about, where am I going in my life? And I just think that's so important. And that, for me, having found myself in a place where I wasn't really satisfied, that's how I've come back to this, how important it is to really be deliberate and thoughtful about where I'm going.
Well, how do you find out what your why is? I mean, how do you reflect on that? Just the why piece of what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I'm really a believer that most of us know the answer to what our why is, or what we would really love to have in our lives. But so many people rule it out. Like, well, it's based on this premise that you can't make money and do what you love. It's like those things they're like oil and water. They don't mix, right? You can either make money or you can do what you love, but you can't do both.
Right.
And I think that assumption is one of the ways in which people get stuck saying, I don't know what my why is. I don't know what's important to me. I think they really do, but if you start with that assumption, then already they just rule out the things that they would love because they say, I can't do that. That's not going to make a life for me.
True. Well, it's scary, I think, for people to answer that question too, because at some level you need to be able to know who you are to answer it, right? Which means spending a little bit of time up here and paying attention to what you're thinking about or what you really want. I mean, that's, you know, sometimes it's not what we think we're supposed to want. There's a little bit of the should stuff that kind of shows up that maybe it's helpful at one point in your life, but if you've shifted gears or you're going a different direction, maybe it doesn't matter anymore.
Right. Yeah. And I think, you know, that's going to be, I think we're going to have a rich conversation on courage next week, because that's exactly what you're getting to, right? Is what is courage and how does it look like? And do you have the courage to step forward towards what it is that you really would love to have in your life?
Yeah.
That'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that conversation.
It will be. It will be.
Cool.
So, you know, one of the questions that I was thinking about as we're talking about self-leadership is the idea of getting started. Because let's just say you do have an idea, right? Let's just say you know what it is you want. You know why it is that you want it. So many people look around themselves and they say, I don't even know how to start. I don't have the money. I don't have the connections. I don't have the experience, whatever it is, all these things that I don't have that I need in order to have that thing that I want to have.
Yeah.
How do you guys think about that in the context of self-leadership?
So can I answer this question?
Sure.
Sorry. So that is essentially where we found ourselves. Gosh, about 12 years ago, we decided to start our company. And I remember the question that came into my head at that moment when we were trying to decide if we wanted to literally jump off the cliff or not was, would I regret not doing this? And I thought, oh my God, the whole concept of regret was way scarier to me to regret something than to jump off the cliff. So then all of a sudden it became a very stark, well, that was an easy answer kind of thing. So
yeah, and that so taking that, and that gets into the courage that we'll talk about next week as well, right? But one of the things I found is if you don't know where to start, a very helpful thing is to find other people who are searching as well. And not that you have to team up with them, but by going to meetups and other networking events and just going out there and mixing and mingling and talking about whatever it is that inspires you and listening to how other people are inspired, ideas will start percolating. And the fact that you're taking the steps to get out there means that you're moving and you're starting to shift your energy basically into one of empowerment, which is basically the basis of everything in life, in my opinion. If you feel good about doing something, you feel like you can do it, then you really can. So if you have this situation where you're trying to figure out, well, I think I know what I want to do, and I think I know how to get there, but I don't know how to get started. Well, the first thing to do is just go and mix and mingle with others. That's the first thing I would suggest.
I love that.
And that builds a little bit of momentum too, because that kind of helps you get going. And it does feel really good to get clarity on some of that stuff in terms of what you would like or not like to do.
And what I most love about that idea is that is a resource that is available to everyone, exactly. Right? Because I resonate with this because I started my business as a coach and as a speaker without any experience in that industry. I spent the last 12 plus years at Apple, and here I am starting this business. I don't know how to start it.
Right.
And what I most love about this idea is there's always a step you can take. And you put out networking, which I think is fantastic. But there's always a step that you can take that moves you forward. And as you said, Beth, that starts to build momentum. Like, oh, well, I met this person and I talked about this. And I made a business card with my new title on it.
Yeah, exactly. All those things count.
They do.
Steps.
They do.
what would you suggest? What are some steps that you would think to help people that are looking for what to do next?
I think all of those things that you mentioned are great. And one that's been so important to me, and this goes with the idea of networking. It's finding people who believe that it's possible. I'll just give you my specific example. For me, when I told my dad, for example, that I was going to leave Apple to start my own business as a speaker and a coach, I thought he was going to cry. He is a 35 years at the same company kind of guy. And, Apple's a great company. It's like, one of the best companies of our era. And for me to walk away from that, I don't think he understood that. And I share that story because it's important to be thoughtful and deliberate about who we're engaging as our support, right? I would love to have my dad in my corner as my support network, but I know that's the way he thinks. That's the way he sees the world. Right. So I'm not going to go to him when I'm contemplating this shift and I'm unstable and I'm just starting to think about this as an idea, because I know he's not going to be supportive, not out of any kind of cruel intent or anything, but that's just how he sees the world. So finding the people who do believe, who say, absolutely, you can do that. Of course you can. Like, those are the people that I think are so important to have in your network.
And I would argue that those are the people too that you want to continue to tap into, because that energy begets energy. It's like, and I'll say negative energy begets negative energy. So especially when you're in these tough spots, we'll get into courage. We got all these leaders into the next week, when you get into these tough spots, you have to tap into that energy, because sometimes yours is just like, barely above water kind of thing when you really need that support. So network is everything, I tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially that, I like what you said about like good energy begets good energy, and bad energy begets bad energy. Yeah. And especially in this idea of steps that you can take, right? Whether it's networking, building that community, doing things like getting a business card made or researching online, or either there's so many steps that we can take. But when we're kind of stuck in a mindset of scarcity or of obstacles, or I don't have what I need, there's a certain energy to that, and it can be trapped. It can become a trap.
It is a trap. Good words. Yes, very good.
Yeah. So as we think about one of the other ideas on self-leadership is, we talk about where are you going, why are you going in that direction. In terms of setting a goal or having a direction, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on how do you set that goal? Do you set that as what do I think is realistic to accomplish? Or do you do more of the BHAG, the big BHAG? It's the big, hairy, audacious goal, which is the like, I want to have 1 million people following me, or whatever it is. It's just that way out there. I have no idea how I'm going to achieve this, but I'm going to set that goal out there as my motivation, my inspiration. Or are you more along the lines of, I want to set a realistic goal. I want to get 50 people to follow me. How do you guys think about that?
Sure. So we do both. So we very much do both. So right above my desk right here, something that says what our You Can Choose mission or vision is, right? And it's to help millions of people understand and intentionally use their personal power to get what they want. That's what I look at that constantly. This is where we're driving. So everything that we do, this presentation this discussion that we're having today, is all around helping people to realize that they're more powerful than they think they are, and that they can take the step, whether it's in self-leadership or courage or grit or networking, whatever it is, you can do more than you think you can, especially as you put your energy behind it. So that's our big overall BHAG, as you called it. But then over here on this board, over here, we've got a list of things that we're doing on well, not quite tactical level, but in terms of a smaller what we're focused on. And the thing that Beth mentioned before, and all the things that we talk about, it's not so much what you do to get you there, it's why you do it. It's what's that energy behind this vision that we have, or those steps that we have over there. What is the energy that we're putting forth in making those things happen is so critical to having success.
Well, and the thing that, just to build on that, that's really, really powerful is when you have that good energy, it builds, and you want to keep building it, whether it's connecting with people, but also doing things that really make sense to you. So it kind of goes back to the very beginning when you're talking about, this is what I want to do, but gosh, I don't think I can do that. It's kind of like, or I don't know if I've got the right resources. Well, what happens when you put that good energy out there, then those resources start to show up, whether they're people, whether it's opportunities, and eventually the money follows. You don't always lead with money. I think you lead with what you want and your intentions, and put that positive energy behind it, because that's really what motivates you. If you look at it, I mean, having a big bank account really isn't motivation, really. It's just, it is. It's like a chair in the corner of a room kind of thing. So so that's why it's so important. And I will also say, as a former planner scheduler, I had to have all the details laid out. It doesn't work. It just leads to disappointment. So I think, especially around self-leadership, having really detailed steps that you do this, do that, first, second, third, that really gets in your way of being open to opportunities that show up.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you guys said a couple of good things. One is just, holding the actions with a bit of an open hand, right? Like, I intend to do these things, but if there's an opportunity that comes up, to be open to that. And I really love, Peter, what you said, both about personal power, but about bringing that energy and that mindset into every action that you're taking. Because it's not so much about, let's go back to the networking example, right? It's not about going to the networking and like trying to cross off, well, I went to a networking event and I shook 20 people's hands and I traded business cards, right? It's not about that. It's about the energy that you bring to it, and bringing that energy of, I may not have all of the pieces in place right now, but I am moving in the direction of this vision, this life, this success that I have charted for myself. And I know why I'm doing it, because it aligns with my values and what's important to me. And so bringing that whole energy, I think, is such an important part of it. And I think that's a great element of self-leadership. It's like, that's one of those nuances that you don't get in business school, right? You don't get in any leadership curriculum. It's not all about what you're doing, but why are you doing it? And that comes through to people. And so that's so important.
It's also great too, if you see people that really play a leadership role in what you would like to emulate, watch them, because you can learn a lot from their energy and their actions, how they interface with people. And everybody has a different leadership style, and there isn't one that's good or bad. It's just different. And I think that knowing what fits for you and where you feel comfortable is a really important part of self-leadership. I mean, there's some people that are, they love to go out, pound the pavement, do that, but that works for them energy-wise. Other people rather sit in front of the computer and do stuff. And, it may be less interpersonal interaction for them. It might be that they don't care for the networking in person as much. It's just, you have to figure out what works for you. And I think that's where there's almost a level of self-honesty that goes in here in terms of the self-leadership, because if you really don't like to do something, own it. Don't do it. Go do something else that you like.
Yeah.
And what about you, Rusty? How do you set your goals or objectives?
I'm very much in the line with what you talked about, but I always start with that vision, the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal, right? Like you said, touching millions of people. And for me, my work is, I don't want anybody to feel stuck in some part of their life, to feel like they're powerless, that they can't change something, or they don't know how to change something. There's something that's just not working for them and they don't know how to change it or get out of it. I don't want anybody to have that experience. My goal is 0 people with that. And I want to support people in the tools and the mindset and the self-leadership so that they can move forward and not experience that. So that for me is it's why I'm doing this, and it's my big goal. And then from that, I do just like you. I've got my board on the side. It's like, okay, the things I'm doing to get there.
Exactly. Perfect.
Yeah. Perfect. All right.
So we're all aligned.
That's why we'll both be phenomenally successful, right?
Yes, exactly. Well, so hey, I know we put a slide together with some key takeaways from this discussion. So Peter, I think you have that. If you want to put it up on the screen, just as we're coming up on 3 o'clock here. I want to just share so as a takeaway for everyone who's on the call here, that you can take it away. That, the three, and we talked about a bunch of things, but at least three takeaways that you can take from this is, number one is to get clear on where you're going, right? Not only what or where you're going, but why you're going there. To focus on abundance and possibility, right? This is the idea that there's always a step you can take, or it's going to the networking event, creating your business card, doing the research online, whatever those things, there's always a possibility to go forward. And the third one is the support network, right? Because these are the people that help you remember that help you focus on the possibility, the steps that you can take, and they're really there to support you along the way. So these are just three of the things that we touched on today, among others, about self-leadership and why it's so important in terms of achieving the goals in all aspects of your life. Whether you have a leadership position in your business or whether you don't, the kind of leadership here that we're talking about applies everywhere.
Very much so.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, great. What a wonderful opportunity to chat with you, Rusty, and I'm looking forward to doing it again next week.
Yeah.
Me too. Yeah. So next week we're talking about courage. So same time next week, Monday at 2:30. I'm looking forward to it too. It'll be great to talk to you guys again.
All right.
Fantastic.
Great.
Thank you, Rusty.
Thanks, Rusty.
All right. Bye.
Bye.